I'm Celeste Hudson,
And I am Kevin E. Smith.
and together we're two vets, one mic.
So today we have Grace on our show coming from Graceful Etiquette. I met Grace, um, how long ago was it? I don't even remember, but we were both active duty together, stationed at Charleston. She was in the hygiene program. And I felt like we instantly had a bond that went beyond the Air Force,
Yeah.
right? So I am not surprised that she is. Well, I am surprised that I was very surprised to know that she was out of the Air Force, but I am not surprised about how great she is doing with what she is doing. So, first, Grace, I want to start by asking you, quickly kind of summarize your journey to the Air Force and out of the Air Force. So,
Ah,
take us
Oh,
on a little journey.
okay, here we go. So the best journeys are the ones that don't have a straight shot. They just veer to the left, to the right, and you adjust along the way. So started out in the Air Force, started as a dental assistant, and then I was selected for our scholarship and went into the dental hygiene program. And before that, I did education and training, which was also a really great experience. And I think it helped build into just that portfolio of being well-rounded that the Air Force is really good about advocating for. And that's where you and I met, Kebony, in hygiene
Mm-hmm.
in Charleston. And
Mm-hmm.
from there, I went to see my first base after hygiene school, which would have been Lackland. And then that's where I was able to be stationed with Celeste. And I feel like Celeste, I talked to you
We
and
met
I
before that
knew
because
you,
of
but
issues that were
yes,
going on in hygiene
yes,
school.
yes. And we would meet at like TDYs or
Yep.
there was always a
hmm
crossing of paths, but then we
hmm
were stationed together at Lackland. And so shortly after I was there, I transitioned out. And so initially I went the medical route, but then after a while I decided, you know what, I'm a little burned out on medical. At that point, it'd been almost 12 years under the medical umbrella, and I wanted to do something different. I'd always envisioned myself being an entrepreneur, owning something and being able to steer it in the direction that allowed me to go into multiple facets, but still with that same purpose of serving people and helping people along the way. And so, with that, I started Graceful Etiquette in March of 2023. And we are a full service business etiquette and protocol company here in San Antonio. And we focus on training professionals on that executive presence, helping them really appear as their best selves. In this corporate environment, sometimes what you know isn't enough. You also need to appear that way as well. And because of human nature, we tend to really look into how someone presents themselves. So we try to help professionals focus on that as well.
You say we, so do you have other people in your company or is it
Yes,
just
so I
you?
have a team. I have a
Oh,
team that helps support all of the different endeavors that I'm in, but I am primarily the one that works with the different audiences. But sometimes it's assistants, sometimes it's my marketing team.
mm,
So I say we because I am not here by myself.
okay.
Long shot.
That's interesting.
Now, so
Go
with the entrepreneur route, when you got out, I heard you say that you were kind of burned out, you got out. So did you feel like any of the programs that the Air Force had, like TAPS or anything that you may have been a part of, Skill Rich, do you feel like it prepared you for getting out?
I think it did. I think each of those facets had their own components for sure. I believe in TAPS was when, we were going over things like resumes, just knowing of the different services that were out there. For me, I didn't realize how much of TAPS really should have been known prior to transitioning out. I've always been very proactive in just knowing where I am and where I'm headed, but I could see where many people could really get intimidated by TAPS only because by the time you get there, you've probably already made the decision to transition out. And there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of information that they provide, but it's more useful if you knew that earlier so that you can set yourself up to be able to have that successful transition. Skill Bridge as well, because Skill Bridge really allows you to actually get into that world and enter into the world of people, the civilian world, and seeing how those interactions take place and how they differ from the military environment, learning things like networking, and it works a little bit differently on the civilian sector as it does in the military. So I do think that combined, both of those programs definitely can help set up service members for success.
Perfect. So, when we chatted maybe months ago, I don't know how long ago, I was like, man, graceful etiquette is like perfect for you, right? I think it's totally fits your personality. So tell us more about how you launched, how you even got like a target audience, like all the things when it comes to
Well,
graceful etiquette.
so it was not so straightforward, right? I actually, now that I'm in graceful etiquette and, I talk to people I've known forever, everyone always gives me this same, well, of course you are. But for me, it was almost like, really? You saw that the entire time? And everyone's like, I don't understand why you didn't do it sooner. So for me, I would say it wasn't so straightforward. A lot of it had to do with, and I talk about this, especially with my training, but also just Kevin, you and I had this conversation. Often you don't recognize the gifts that you are inherently born with, and you don't
Hmm.
recognize them as gifts. You assume that everyone can do it because it comes a little bit more easier to you. So you don't necessarily think that that's of value to anyone else. And so when I look at my pathway into the military and at every base, I would end up consistently in a similar role, right? Where it would be, hey, can you help this person just kind of refine themselves a little bit? We have some people who, they just don't know how to deliver their message. Can you just help them out a little bit? But for me, I just thought, oh, okay, well, that sounds fun. But when I transitioned out, and then I had that period where I initially thought I was going to go medical, but then I decided, you know what, I want to do something different. I actually fell into a little bit of what I would call just, I wouldn't say it was a spiral, but it was definitely, I felt as though the bottom was out from underneath me because I didn't know exactly the direction that I wanted to go. And that was the first time in many, many years where I didn't have that perfectly curated plan mapped out. One thing that the
Hmm.
military does teach you is preparedness. And so when we talk in years, our years are so different than the civilian sector. In the military, we confidently speak about 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And we talk about it like it's not a big deal, and then you enter the civilian side and there's so many more variables that play into that. And so really it's more like, what is your 2-year plan, 3-year plan? So I definitely felt a sense of, I would say, just feeling like I was lost because I just didn't know where I should go next. I had all of these skill sets that I knew I could use. I just didn't really know how to pinpoint them. So I would say there was probably a period of a good year, year and a half, where honestly, there was a lot of feelings of just feeling almost like I was not only just lost, but confused, trying
Mm.
to figure out why I was confused, someone who's never confused, and then all, well, why is this happening? Um, I found myself no longer reacting to certain things the way that I liked and before that I did. And I didn't recognize that from a personality perspective, I was also changing. That's something that I never factored in, right? Because in the military, the only thing that is constant is change. And so often veterans or service members who are still in, they count on themselves staying the same or having the same goals or having the same approach to help guide that path of constant change. And so when you transition out of that, and then all of a sudden you're the one who's changing, and maybe there's things you like that you don't like anymore, it really throws you into a little bit of a tailspin because you're like, okay, so what does this mean? And I found myself in that place. I felt lost. I felt there was feelings sometimes of embarrassment, right? Because all these people who knew me in the military before, hey, what are you doing now? And there's something about saying, I don't know, that is extremely vulnerable, but also just, it really makes you aware of where you're at. And it's like, oh, well, I thought you were going to do this, and I thought you were going to do this. And I'm like, no, actually, I am not doing any of that. Well, so what are you doing? You have to be doing something. You're always building something. And it's like, no, actually, I'm just trying to figure out who I am on this side of the chapter. where I go from here. And so I was probably in that space, I would say, for about a year and a half. Veterans, if there's one thing I can encourage you is, if you're feeling that way, therapy is amazing. You know, even those who are deemed too strong, you can never go wrong with that. I think that helped me a lot, just being completely transparent, having someone that I could talk my feelings out with, and having that sense of, no, you're not alone. There's a lot of other people who feel this way, and this is actually a normal transition of changing seasons. So I would say that really helped me a lot. I'm a woman of faith, and so I used that time really to delve back into who I was, not only as me, but as a Christian. You know, I used to have a certain relationship with God where it was more like, okay, God, this is what we're doing. Just let me know, but I think this is what we're doing. And so getting into that space for the first time, I didn't have that. It really forced me to have to learn how to rely back on Him and allow me to listen to that still small voice of my sense of direction. And so during that, you know, just talking to different mentors, talking to people who I'd met along the way on the civilian sector, I started really delving into, and my therapist also recommended this as well, was start looking at, what are your gifts? You know, what are those skills? What are those things that you're inherently born with that you do with the least amount of effort, yet they seem to always have the greatest impact on people around you? What are those? Write those down. Find a way to consolidate them into something that is productive, something that can help other people, that will get you out of your own headspace. And so with that, that's really what I started doing, just writing down, okay, what are those things that people always seem to constantly comment on? Maybe people who don't know one another, yet they always have the same message for me. And whereas maybe previously I used to brush it off like, oh, wait, no, I thought everybody did that, you know? What are those things that people would say to me? And so for me, things came up like, you know, you're so organized, or you always seem to know how to just really polish things up, or you have a way of delivering messages that others can't articulate. You know, you love helping people, you know. So just I added all of those up, and then I said, okay, so what can I do with this? Right? How will this allow me to stay in that sense of purpose that I love, which is working with people? And so I started just doing a lot of research on jobs and areas and careers that really fall into some of those skill sets. And I actually discovered etiquette. And I've always been very fascinated with protocol. I love protocol. You all both know me on the military side. I love a good regulation that down to the minute detail tells you an entire story. I'm an avid reader, and so I've always just loved that protocol etiquette portion. So I really started delving into that. What's interesting is, I think the former me, or the military me, would have viewed that as more of just something you do on the side, as maybe a little too frivolous. It doesn't have enough black and white meat and potatoes, or what I thought it should be. But for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself the permission to actually explore some of those other aspects and how I could make them productive. So I found etiquette. I found protocol. I did more research on that. I actually enrolled and went to the American School of Protocol and got my certification in business etiquette as well as youth etiquette. So I'm certified there. And then from there, I decided to start my own company. And sure enough, about a month and a half in, I got my first contract. And I was actually shocked by that, because I was like, really? And you know, I'll tell you, what hasn't all been roses. Being a business owner is not easy, and you're actually going to have a lot more no's than yeses, but the yeses that count are the ones that really take you to the next level. So that was how I got there. It's a really long answer.
No, it's a
No, it
good
was
answer.
good. No,
I
yeah.
have a question.
Yes.
Did you use any of the military, veteran resources to get your company started? I know they have like loans or programs to really help entrepreneurs. So if you did, can you explain that process?
Oh, absolutely. So I did not use any of those. I was well aware of them, and there are plenty out there. Just where I was financially and just really, you know, situationally, I didn't need them at the time, especially with the type of business I was going into,
Okay.
consulting. typically has a little bit of a lower overhead
Mhm.
than
Mm,
a brick and mortar type of company where you really are going to need to leverage a larger loan. So I personally self-funded my
Mhm.
company, but there were plenty of resources, and I live in Military City, USA,
Yep.
that are all available for sure.
Hmm. Okay. Well, that's good. Finances, that's always one of the biggest things when people are leaving the military. That's why a lot of people still don't leave the military because of the finance. Not even necessarily that you don't have money saved. It's just you're so used to that security of getting that check on the 1st and 15th, no matter what. Um, so
Yes.
do you have any words of wisdom for people that are getting out and maybe struggling with their finances or any kind of information you can give on that?
Oh, 100%. So the only reason I was able to do what I did was I've always approached the military as you don't know what's coming tomorrow, so start with the end in mind. I would treat every enlistment like it was my last enlistment. And so even
mm.
though honestly, for if maybe my first few years, if you would have told me that I was going to get out, I probably would have been shocked as well. I'd actually always planned on being a career airman, but I would treat every enlistment like it was my only one. And so I would look at, financially, am I ready to get out? We did a lot of investing with real estate, et cetera. So I would recommend coming up with some sort of financial plan that allows you the ability to get out after one enlistment. If you can't, then you have to dig deep and try to figure out something. But do not go into the military. And if you're in the military, do not think, well, I have 6 years left. I have 8 years left, because a lot of things change, whether it is your family dynamics. I know for me, that was one of the motivators as well. My husband and I felt like we were at the point where we were constantly just high-fiving, and we looked at our 4 children. We were like, okay, who is raising these kids? Because we're both so busy taking care of everyone else and all of these larger units that we just didn't feel like we were showing up for them in the way that we wanted to. And that's not a
Mm,
fight in the least bit for mill-to-mill families who retire. For our specific dynamic, family dynamic, we knew that we needed and we wanted a change. But financially, it was only because we set ourselves up to be able to transition out. So that's what I would recommend. Treat every enlistment like it's your only enlistment, that it's your last enlistment, and what is it you need to do to be ready to get out after that enlistment.
That's good information. I've never heard anyone say that. Treat it like it's your last enlistment every time you enlist.
You all saw me. I was always doing something.
I know.
you're right. And I think you said something that was key that kind of reminds me of the military mindset, and it's kind of hard when you're trying to convince people that it's so good out here. Um, like the questions you got when you first got out, like, well, what are you doing? And God forbid you get out after 10 years and don't retire.
Oh yeah.
It's like oh my gosh, what did you just do?
What happened?
What
Did you get in
happened? Like,
trouble?
why
I
would you
mean,
even do that? Like, I think, and now
mhm.
being on the other side, now I do want to say that I didn't, when people came to me and say, hey, I'm thinking about getting out, I always say, hey, do you have a plan?
Yeah,
Right? Because I didn't feel
always.
like if you should get out with no plan, but I never felt like getting out was the worst thing. But it's almost like a death sentence when you tell people that, after 12 years, like, I'm getting out, oh my gosh, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I think I could see why that would be a lot of pressure for you because you were so good in the military. And so people don't, I think a lot of people in the military don't have a good concept of what it's like to be out, especially if they've been in so long. It's hard to convince people like, it's life outside of this. They're like, you're gonna blow that, you're gonna miss out on that retirement check, or,
That's
it's
right.
just what about those benefits? It's like, it's millions of people that do this without the military,
Yeah.
right? And they're doing okay.
They're
Um,
doing and they're thriving. I always say, if you want to know if you are a service member who is considering getting out, do not ask someone who's been in the military a long time. They wouldn't know. They've been in.
Thank you. Thank
Ask
you.
an airman. I
Because
think
they always have information to offer. And it's
yes.
like,
hmm
you're in. You can't help me.
How would you know? You're a career airman. How would you know? How would you know?
Right.
No, ask those airmen who just came in, especially a lot of those older airmen or who have maybe had a previous career and they're transitioning into the military. Ask them about it. Yes, there's maybe circumstances that are then giving them the military as an opportunity to be more stable, but they are still your best pulse at what is actually taking place. Reach out to friends who have transitioned out and not the ones in their first year of transition. Reach out to the friends who've been out for maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Ask them for advice on, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I've done differently. But do not talk to career military personnel and ask them, how do I do this on the outside? They wouldn't know.
Mhm.
Right, right. A 4-year enlistee asking a 25-year chief, do you think I should get out? Of course they're going to tell you
No,
no.
you've only just begun.
Oh man.
So Grace, I saw your most recent video about how to enter a meeting and act during a meeting. And I almost put, I really feel like this video is based off of me because I do all this. Remember, I get mad and I do this and slam, and I'm like, I did all that stuff around you. I was like, is this video based off of me?
I, that's hilarious because some of those really were exaggerations. But I will say there are meetings where in your head you are twirling in a chair, like, okay, this horse has been beat multiple
Mhm.
times. It has been repurposed. All the pigs have been backed. We
Yes,
nothing else to add to this. Let's finish this. But yes, those, I'm having a lot of fun making those videos
they're
because
good.
them are from, thank you, are just, experiences, but others are also just from things that people do that they don't realize come off as insecurities, and often no one will tell them. And so things that I've observed in myself, or in other people, I usually try to draw some inspiration. And then if nothing else, I, have a little bit extra fun with it, like the wine glass one.
That one, that's me too. And then entering a room, right? When you're
Yes,
just looking through your bag, that's me. And I'm like, I go to work like that every day, but I've been told that I have such a strong presence and I look like I know what I'm doing and I'm like on it. So I'm like, well,
yes,
maybe I'm okay.
yes, yes. There's just and those are such everyday, everyone does
Little
that,
things.
little things, and everyone does it at any point in time. But it's just the idea of, if you knew that this is what you looked like, would you continue to do it?
Right.
And it's just those, I call them micro adjustments. There's a little something that you can change that can just make the difference. And what is that? Whether it's
Mhm.
just the way that you sit in your chair, and versus, you're listening and someone's like, oh, okay, what is the one micro adjustment you can make to present yourself in a more confident manner? So
Yeah,
that,
just you doing that right there gives off the like, you're not really interested in the conversation, also dominating it, you know what I mean?
that's right.
So I started reading a book, how to read people, and they talk about what you just did. Even when you're like this, you're actually really thinking and listening. But when, of course, when you fold, cross your arms, that means you're judging. And so it's pretty interesting that you're working on those things. And I love the videos, and I've been sharing them to try to get
Yeah,
other people engaged. And some of them have already commented, which is awesome. So
I saw that. Thank you
we
for
keep
that.
trying to blast you out there.
Well, thank you. Yes, no, it's
And
it's
because
funny. You don't realize. And I would say a demographic that's, really that I target is the veteran population, because when you're in uniform, there's something about that uniform that is a cloth of protection.
Right.
Like it's almost like a shield. I don't know if it's the multi patterns. I don't know if it's all the pockets and the pens. I don't know what it is, but there's so much to it that the minute you step out of it, you feel so seen and vulnerable. And you're like, I don't know what to do with my hands. So I try to also incorporate some of those, because I do think that for the population that's transitioning out, if there's a little something that I can give you, that, hey, that next time you go into that room, just walk in, just walk in, look around,
Mhm.
see if you recognize anyone. If you don't, that's okay. Just start on this side and just work your way around. Then that's what I'll do.
Yeah.
that was about to be my next question, because I think about protocol and etiquette being reserved for our most senior leaders, like the general officers. And so now I'm thinking about maybe the gaps that exist between the peons and the us regular old folks when it comes to etiquette, like in the military versus out. Do you like notice any themes or what people are missing now that you're kind of immersed in this protocol world? Like, what would you say that we do, like being in the military, getting out versus what you've seen civilian leaders do that's kind of different?
I would say for military, it's easy to spot one because all they talk about was their time in the military. And so for as much as we preach in the military situational awareness, right? Know the environment that you're in, study the environment that you're in, and then proceed. And I get that. I think a lot of that has to do with just, you know, a little bit of a mechanism of protection. Some, you know, when you're reaching for something, when you don't know what else to reach for, you reach for usually what is familiar to you, which is probably your experience in the military. But I would say that's what I tend to notice the most is that you'll be in a crowd, a civilian crowd. You have maybe one or two veterans or someone who is in the process of transitioning out. And it seems as though the only thing they have the ability to talk about is the military and their time in the military and their accomplishments in the military. And while those are all very much revered and also there's a sense of gratitude from the civilian sector anytime someone mentions that they've served in the military. But then what? After the thank you for your service, what else is there to you, or what are you able to converse about? So that I think is the biggest pain point that I see for veterans is what do I talk about outside of me and my uniform? Because when you're in the military, that's all we talk about. Our favorite thing to do when we go to any training or if we go out to eat is talk about the good old days, and we love it and we do it the whole time. But on the civilian sector, that differs. That differs. And then I
What?
would. Oh, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll say that.
Yes, no, I like it. I feel like you had a good question.
I think I'm thinking about myself, naturally shy, right, and introvert. And I wouldn't say I talk about my military service. I would say I don't really talk at all sometimes, right? Like if I go into a room, you know, I might just get on my phone and detach and, you
Right.
know, hold on TikTok. So what would be a good way to kind of break the ice if you go in, you're a little nervous, you don't know how to kind of interact, especially because networking is a bigger thing out here,
Yes.
you know, and you need those skills to kind of network and introduce yourself to people. What would be some tips to kind of overcome that maybe anxiety when you go into a room full of people?
I would say do your homework ahead of time. You know, often if you're not talking, it's not because you don't have anything to say or anything of value. You just maybe don't know what to reach for first, or it's so overwhelming. So I would say doing your homework ahead of time, writing down a list of topics or questions that you can ask to strangers to get to know them before you walk into the room, reviewing those questions ahead of time, whether it's in your car, ducking to the bathroom real quick just to take a look at those. But find out interesting facts about the area that you're in. Let's say you are traveling, you know, do some research ahead of time and find out what's going on in that area. I always say a good resource is the business journal. So find the business journal in your local area because I love the business journal, for example, the one in San Antonio, because what they do is they give you snapshots. They give you a snapshot of each part of the city, what's going on, and how this is going to potentially affect you. That's a great resource. Or the Wall Street Journal, where they talk about current events, you know, issues that are coming up. So taking some time to do a little bit of reading on that and add those to your list of questions so that when you walk in most professional spaces, leaders are interested in their environment. They're not necessarily interested in themselves, and they may not necessarily be interested in you. They're interested in knowing how is what is going on in the environment going to affect their business? How is it going to affect the trajectory of what's taking place? You know, the saying goes, if you want to be interesting, discuss ideas and not people. And so that
Mm.
includes yourself. Do not discuss yourself. Yes, if someone asks question. Okay, that's fine. But what about discussing ideas? What about discussing policies? Maybe some improvements that are taking place in the city that you're in. So looking at the Business Journal or the Wall Street Journal, I mean, that's like a secret sauce.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Wouldn't have thought of that. At least you have that as a conversation starter. I use my face on my wall. You can't see it because it's blurred out, but Dwight from The Office, when when I get on these calls and it's just to see, a conversation starter, people are always like, "Who is that?" But I like that. The Wall Street Journal and you said the Business Journal of your city.
Journal.
That's pretty
So
interesting. I've
for us,
never heard
we
that
have the San
before.
Antonio Business Journal. It's
Hmm.
wonderful, and for most of those, it doesn't cost that much in terms of a subscription, but they send you something usually every day. It's a quick read in the morning, but you can use those, pull out those facts throughout your day.
Hmm. I think now when I look at like some executives I've been around, and I know that etiquette isn't just reserved for executives, right? I think
Right.
it's for everyone. But I can looking at the people professional play like spaces, I can definitely tell who's more, I guess, polished or I think people with the most executive presence move differently. And it's a way I can't really explain. But they do not move the same way that other people move.
I was just about to say, explain. Like, what's the
It feels more
difference?
purposeful, it feels more strategic.
Mm,
Um, just the way they make moves and their conversation is different, right?
That the nail on the head. It's intention.
Mhm,
Intention is the difference. So, we just spoke about having questions prepared ahead of time. So,
mhm,
knowing the space you're walking into before you walk into it. Think about when you're taking a test. How confident are you when you walk into a room knowing that you've studied, you are ready to go, you know the answers that they're going to ask you, you even know the ones that they might not ask you, you're really
mhm,
confident. Versus when you walk into a classroom setting or any other environment where you're like, I'm just going to go and see how this goes. How do you
mhm,
appear? Typically, you're either frazzled or you're just trying to grasp at straws, or you're just all over the place. People can tell those who have prepared, those who have a sense of intention, versus those who are winging it. And the saying goes, "Fake it till you make it." I
mhm.
believe that saying because you're not faking it. We can tell you don't know.
Dang
Okay.
it.
you know but how much time does it take just to have a little bit of intention of knowing, why am I here? Why am I at this event? Is it going to do something for my business? Am I hoping to meet more people in this area or in this arena? What is the purpose of my time here? Those that executive presence comes from knowing why you're in the room.
Mhm,
Whereas some people walk into the room and they're just more of a, let's just see how this goes. So then
mhm,
you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants. But understanding that your time is valuable, understanding that your words are valuable, and then also understanding that others' words are valuable. So who can I talk to that is going to add value to me, right?
mhm,
Who can I speak with, or what can I speak with them about that will leave both of us feeling as though our time was well spent? And then also, how long am I staying? Because often, if you know how long
mm,
you have in the space that you're in, then you're going in there with a plan so that you can get in, do what you need to do, and get out. So if I'm walking into a networking event, I already know how long I'm going to stay. So in
mhm,
that case, I have things that I need to do. Who's here today? Who do I need to speak with today? What are some organizations that are being represented today? Maybe I have an interest in this piece or this piece. Why am I here? Why are we talking? And if it gets to the point where it's kind of like, I don't think this is quite making the best use of my limited time here,
mhm.
then I'm probably going to say, it was great. It's been a pleasure. I'm going to go ahead and yes, I see someone else I'd like to speak with, but thank you for taking the time to speak with me. But understanding that your time is valuable. So I think that maybe that's what you're recognizing, Cabini. That's
mhm.
attention.
No, no, for sure. I can definitely look and tell who is moving with intention and who isn't. And now that I think about it, I don't think I'm moving with a lot of intention.
You know what? The funny
I'm
thing is,
looking for an escape when I go in
Oh
places.
my God.
I would say that's something that I recall about both of you is
Mhm.
that typically you both moved with a sense of purpose and a sense of intention. Like Kebony, the one thing I remember about you is that you never spoke unless you had something that you needed to say or
Mhm.
something that someone needed to hear. So that in itself, you're very intentional with your words, which is why usually when you spoke, I paid attention because it's not like you're going to speak forever, because once you say what you need to say, like that's
She's
it.
done.
Right.
Right. And I love how comfortable you are with just looking back at people and just blinking. You're like,
Mhm.
yeah, let's all sit in this. Yeah. You know,
Oh, okay.
same thing with Celeste. I mean, you've always been, Celeste has a plan. She's not walking into a room unless she knows what it is that she needs out of that room. So
Mhm.
in that sense of purpose of why are, her favorite thing used to be, why are we here? What are we doing? What are we doing? That was always Celeste's thing. So what are we doing? So what are we going to do about this? Like, what are we
Mhm.
doing? And it was something that used to drive her nuts is when people would just talk about their problems, and she'd be like, okay,
Mm,
what are we going to do? Are we just like, why are we here? So
Mhm.
I think that sense of purpose and intention definitely also resonates with both of you.
thank
Forgot I even
you.
would ask those questions. It's been so long. I'm telling you.
I'm a reader of people. That's my
Yeah.
favorite thing to do.
Since I've been out, I don't think, even though I do all this military transitioning, volunteering on the side every day, I talk to so many people, talk to two people today. I don't think about the military. Because usually they're trying to talk to me about the company I work for, honestly. But yeah, and it's just so weird. It's like that part of my life is over and done, and I'm in a totally different space. I do remember I asked you one day, like, man, I feel like this is not me. This is not my purpose. Like, I should be doing something more. And you're like, you know what? You're a storyteller. You should be like a public speaker, someone that goes around and
Mm,
speaks. She's like, I see that you. And I may not be doing that, but I'm on some type of platform right now, right? Doing this type of speaking
You're public speaking.
that's reaching out to others. And I also remember hindsight, I said I want to when I get out, I want to sit at home and grade papers in my pajamas, drinking coffee, while I'm teaching at school. I want to teach online. And now that I look at it, I am teaching online for a
hmm
nonprofit organization. So it's just kind of weird how things happen and how you get put into these roles that you say you want to do. You don't think you're doing them, but when you
Yes.
actually sit back
Yes.
and think about it, it's like, oh, I'm doing everything I said I was going to do.
Well, and
hmm
Celeste,
hmm
so you just said something that was very interesting that I think also lends to that transition. When we talk about transitioning, we often forget about ourselves and how
Mhm.
we will transition into our new spaces. And there's so many military members that I talk to where they're like, I don't even recognize who that was, or that was such a different person
Mhm.
than who I am today. And, even you just saying, I don't think I would even move like that anymore. I mean,
Mhm.
there's definitely a sense of urgency that leaves you when you transition out, but it can be a little bit confusing if you don't recognize that you are changing to prepare for your next environment.
Mhm.
You know,
hmm
um, and I think that that also lends to a lot of those feelings of confusion and just not understanding why you're not reacting the way that you used to. But even just in our conversations, we all have this like, yes, we're all very purposeful, but there's still a sense of calm that you don't
Oh.
often see. And so getting used to quieting the noise and just saying, okay, let's everyone breathe. Everyone,
Mhm.
it doesn't, and to be fair, it doesn't always work that way. So in the military, you can't just do that all the time, right? But there's definitely when we talk about those differences with civilians and veterans, and sometimes the difficulties in assimilating into those new environments, sometimes that sense of urgency isn't needed, right?
Mhm.
That fight or flight isn't needed, but we come with it. Like, okay, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing? What are we moving? And everyone's like, thank you for your service.
Yeah.
But
Pump your brakes.
wow,
Settle down.
wow.
I get it. I was like that when I was doing my skill bridge. I'm like, you know, why isn't anyone telling me what I need to do throughout the day? Why am I just sitting here? Where's the schedule? Like, what am I doing the whole week? What?
Yes. Yes.
And yeah, it was just weird,
Yes.
but
Well, and then you
That's
also
how much
go,
we have to, I'm sorry.
no, I was gonna say you also go from a large group of people needing you constantly, all the time. There's multiple fires that have to be put out
mhm,
constantly. And then you transition into the space where it's silence. So then you're thinking, am I not doing enough?
that's
Or
me.
no
Hmm.
longer needed? Or was I ever as important as those who were in with me made me feel that I was? And it's not necessarily because of an inflated sense of ego, but there's just that sense. I think we all have that call to action to serve and to know that we're helping someone. And so that can be a little bit difficult as well when you go from, I need you, I need you, I need you. Hey, where you at? Nothing, this can't happen without you, to all of a sudden, no one calls, you know?
Hmm.
I wish people would talk more about the silence that comes after you drive off of that installation. Everyone's like, goodbye, we'll miss you, we'll miss you. And then there's silence, you know? And you're like, all right, looking out the window, like, oh, wonder what's going on now?
Well, someone said that to me recently. I don't think it's like we don't want to be like we forget them. A lot of us, it's like, well, they were thinking they don't want to hear from us. They're retired, they leave, they talked about how much they couldn't wait to go and then for us to call them and bother them per se, or, we just think we're being a bother. So I don't know, it could be a little bit of both, but
And I think
yeah.
you have to have a relationship that transcends just the military connection,
Mhm.
Right.
right? Like, are you friends in real life, or was it just like, hey, they're at my base and I PCS and when I see you, it's a good time, we'll catch up, or did you actually make connections that were long lasting? I think that's another thing that military people that we don't do well sometimes is just those enduring relationships and friendships, and you connect on something outside of the military. Do you have those friendships where you just talk about life?
Mhm.
Or what's going on, and so it's easier to keep in touch that way if you have more things to talk about other than you know, what went on at work, you
Yeah.
know. Um,
I agree. I find that the people who I still keep in contact with are usually the ones that we talked about something other than our occupations when we were in that occupation, or other
Mhm.
than what was taking place when we would talk about life, or, okay, well, what do you want to do next? Or where do you see yourself? Or, what would be really neat if we could just do this, or if I could do this. I do think that I see a correlation between those I still keep in contact with, for sure, that, we check in. It's not every day, but we check in. And there was definitely, I think, that similarity is we usually spoke about what we were going to do that didn't necessarily tie to our service.
Mhm.
and when I talk to active duty people now, it's hard, only because you don't realize how much of your life is the military. Like, it's your identity. So if I'm talking to people and I'm catching, it's usually them venting about what's going on at a base.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh, I just talked to a buddy of mine maybe a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me everything that was happening at his base, and you're so engulfed in that. And you want to just say, just get out. Like,
Or
if you can't, like, you're over 20, leave it, right?
yeah.
Because it's almost like words fall short in trying to convey how good it is out here. Not
Mhm.
saying it started out good for everybody. It wasn't a journey or a process. But when you come out now and you look back, you're like, man, look, I was worried about promoting. I was worried about these people at this base. And when I got out, just like you kind of mentioned, Celeste, it's like, I don't even think about the military anymore. Like, I went to the VA today for an appointment and I was looking at everybody in uniform. I was like, "Ah,
I'm glad
man,
it's not me.
glad it's not me."
Love that for
And not
you.
that the
I don't
military
have to put
was
that on.
horrible.
Mhm.
I'm grateful for what I did. I had some of the best and worst times of my life, right, in the military. And I didn't leave bitter. I'm grateful. But man, I don't know. It's something about that stress, something about all those demands. It's just hard to explain to people that, and you don't know the weight lifted off until you leave. So,
Well, and Kevin,
um,
you just mentioned something that I think is worth, talking about is when you're talking to someone who's still in, they're so engulfed in just that if it doesn't have to do with that particular topic, there's crickets, or
Yeah.
you try to veer them off of that. Like, okay, perfect. Yep, it's stressful at work. Let's talk about something else. And then it's like, there's nothing else to talk, so something that I recommend, and, we used to do this, and this is something that we've always done while we were in, is find out what the city that you're in is all about, right? Find a way to get off of the base, both
Mhm.
physically and mentally, when you're not at work. Because, feeling like you're constantly a tenant of the city that you're in versus a resident can have
Mm.
a sense of feeling isolated. And so when you get to the point where you are ready to transition out, you don't really know how to integrate yourself into the community because you've never had to. I used to call it the Bermuda Triangle. I go from base to home to the store or church, and it would just be like a triangle. Wait, I'm trying to see if I can do a triangle on the screen. Nope.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
It's
not
going,
even.
it's like a rhomboid
What
or
is
something.
that? Why can't I do a triangle? How about
Octagon,
does
I don't
that
know.
work?
Yeah.
How does that?
3 points.
Why
I
is
see the
it
vision. I see
so
the vision.
No, she went like this and then was over here. And
I was trying to watch myself do it, and then I realized that wasn't working. Okay, here we go. Boom, boom, boom.
there you
3
go.
points. The Bermuda Triangle. So a way that you can really ease yourself out of that, and if you're looking to potentially transition out, maybe not soon, but in the next few years, is getting into the practice of integrating yourself into the community that you're in, so that when you are ready to transition out, even if it's not in that specific city, you've already done it before, right? So maybe you join a few organizations that have nothing to do with the military, that are
Mhm.
outside of the base, that have to do with the interests that you want to explore potentially when you transition out, and learning how to really just practice talking to a civilian who has no idea what acronyms you're using are.
Yeah.
So you're helping yourself get out of that mode so that when the time comes, you can easily assimilate into the environment that you're in. And so that was something that, with every base that I went to, I always made it a point to, have friends who had nothing to do with the military, join organizations, or be a part of initiatives that had nothing to do with where I was at on base. That way, when the time came, I knew how to be a little bit more comfortable in those spaces.
Mhm.
That's excellent advice. Excellent advice. So in the interest of time, I know we have to wrap this up. I feel like I didn't have to look at one question.
And I feel like we got a free graceful etiquette course. And so now I don't
Right.
have to, get a contract with you. So I
There
appreciate
we
it.
go. That was the nugget.
Yep.
Come to a room prepared. Write some questions
Hmm.
down and know what you're going to talk about, and find your local business journal or Wall Street Journal and subscribe.
Yep.
Like, subscribe.
Yep.
Now, Grace, do you work with people individually or do you work just with organizations? How is your business model?
Yes, so I mainly work with organizations. So whether on the corporate side, I typically will come in after a decision maker has approached me, or someone who works into that realm of decision making, and I work with teams. So whether it is your team could be an 8-person team, it could be a 250-person organization or a team. Those are usually how I model that. For my youth, it's same model. So I usually work with schools here, and I offer our training program, our etiquette program through that as well. Case by case, I will do individuals, but I find that when you're in the business of learning how to interact with others, I always encourage interacting with others. And
Mm,
keeping that group model really helps you to actually utilize your skills. If you and I, Kebony, are working together, you're not really practicing what we're talking about because it's just
Mhm.
you and I. Yes,
mhm.
we can do okay, so when you do this, go into here. But how much more efficient or how much more productive is it if you're in a group setting where maybe no one knows what they're doing? So then there's already that sense of camaraderie there.
Right.
Like, okay, now let's all practice. And then everyone can
Hmm.
practice on one another. So I find that that group dynamic really lends to helping those interactions take place.
All right.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to leak all your information here after this episode, so organizations can get in contact with you.
Absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. You can find me.
Mhm.
type in Graceful Etiquette or my name, Grace Uwizeye-Allen, and you'll find me.
Of
Well,
course.
it
Thank
has
you
been
so
a
much,
pleasure talking
Grace.
to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Much.